Republicans are not being accused of waging a war on women for no reason or for something about which they agree with the Democrats entirely. Republicans are being accused of waging a war on women for something they're doing that is very different than what the Democrats are doing. It's about policy affecting women. There is no distinction between the parties at all on nice feelings about moms and candidates' spouses. But there is a great distinction between the parties on, well, take your pick. I mean, in Arizona yesterday, the Republican governor there, Jan Brewer, signed into law the most restrictive ban on abortions in the country. Because of the way the Arizona law measures pregnancy, it bans abortion even earlier than the other 7 states that have enacted this type of late-term ban. Arizona also added a new 24-hour waiting period to their state's forced ultrasound requirement, and it hits doctors who provide abortions with new specially targeted regulations just for them. A bill also landed on the governor's desk this week that would make it legal for doctors to lie to women about their pregnancies if the doctor thinks it will prevent that woman from seeking an abortion. And still in Arizona, remember the Tell Your Boss Why You're on the Pill bill? A version of that bill passed the Arizona Senate this week. It is not dead. In Mississippi, Republican Governor Phil Bryant, a guy who said after taking office, quote, "We want Mississippi to be abortion-free," he's well on the way to that. He says he will sign a new trap law, a new targeting the state's only abortion clinic with onerous new regulations sometime in the next few days. In Iowa this week, wrangling among Republicans over new abortion restrictions appears poised to delay the legislature's work on a little thing called the budget and also the end of the legislative session. Yesterday, the Iowa Senate was fighting about a Republican proposal to defund Planned Parenthood. In Michigan, former Congressman Pete Hoekstra is running for U.S. Senate this year. This week on the campaign trail, Mr. Hoekstra was asked about the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, the law that helps get women equal pay for equal work by ensuring their access to the courts. Here's what Republican Senate candidate Pete Hoekstra had to say about the Fair Pay Act at a campaign event this week.
I voted against it. That thing is a nuisance. It shouldn't be the law.
That thing is a nuisance. Republican Pete Hoekstra of Michigan calling the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act a nuisance. Again, it is a law that says women must be allowed access to the courts to sue if they're being paid less than a man for doing the same work. That's a nuisance, according to Pete Hoekstra. It was not a secret that Pete Hoekstra, along with most of his Republican colleagues, voted against the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act in Congress. But this is kind of a bad time for Republicans to be making headlines for trashing the Fair Pay for Women law. The Republicans' likely presidential nominee, Mr. Romney, has been falling all over himself this week on this issue. President Obama signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act 9 days after he was sworn in. It was the first bill he signed into law. But when the Romney campaign convened a conference call this week specifically to talk about women and the economy, they had trouble answering what seemed to be an easy, straightforward question about women and the economy.
Our next question will come from Sam Stein with Huffington Post. Please go ahead.
Yeah, does Governor Romney support the Lilly Ledbetter Act?
Sam, we'll get back to you on that.
The point of the call, again, is Mitt Romney is great for women and the economy. Does Mitt Romney support equal pay for women and legislation to help that along? We'll get back to you on that. Did anybody know they were going to ask about that? Why didn't you brief me? That was a really embarrassing moment for the Romney campaign. And even their cleanup efforts were messy, not specifically addressing whether Mr. Romney actually supported the law in their initial response after the conference call debacle, and finally saying that Mr. Romney would not change the law. The campaign never did say whether Mr. Romney actually supports the Fair Pay Act, whether he would have voted for it, whether he would have signed it into law when he'd been president and had come to his desk. So I'd like to officially send out a plea to reporters who, unlike us, can get their questions answered by the Romney campaign. In your reporting on this issue, here is an unanswered question on a totally substantive political issue on which there is a big difference between Democrats and Republicans and on which Mitt Romney has so far avoided giving an answer. If you want to really advance the political conversation in a meaningful way, here's a freebie. Here's a question to ask Mitt Romney. Were most Republicans in Congress wrong when they voted no on the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act? Would Mr. Romney have voted yes if he were in Congress? If he were president, would he have signed it into law? Is Republican Governor Scott Walker wrong to have replaced the Wisconsin state-level version of the Fair Pay Act just last week? And when I said replaced, I meant repealed. Sorry. He repealed it. Mitt Romney says that Scott Walker is his great ally. Does that mean that he thinks Scott Walker is right to have repealed fair pay legislation at the state level? This is not an esoteric, impressionistic, fake fight thing. There's a real difference here between the parties. So how about we instead focus on that?